Hi, and welcome to my poster presentation, Considerations and Lessons Learned for Developing and Implementing Online Surveys. My name is Salish Harrison, and I'm a policy analyst over at the UCSF Philip Arley Institute for Health Policy Studies. This is just a disclaimer that all the views expressed in this presentation are mine and not the Department of Health and Human Services, and that we were funded through the Department of Health and Human Services Family and Youth Services Bureau. So just really quick, this presentation will go over the steps and thought processes you should have in developing an online survey, and then some lessons learned from the different projects that we've worked on. And so before I get started on all that, I just want to say that a lot of the lessons learned that we got was from three major projects that we worked on. One was the Prius project, which for our grant was a 3-year randomized control trial for a tech integrated sexual health curriculum in Fresno County. The PrEP program and the INE program, which are statewide comprehensive sexual education programs, and the Adolescent Family Life program, which is a statewide case management program. And so all of these programs cover a diverse range of settings and populations, and the number of surveys that we collected are numbering in the thousands. So when developing an online survey, one of the things that you need to assess first is just the needs of your project. So what is the target population, and what is their access to technology or their tech literacy? What is the size of the population? Are we working with a large size or a small size? And then any accessibility concerns. And beyond that, accessibility concerns, also just like language barriers. Is there a literacy challenge, or is there a primary language that you need to be focusing on? English, Spanish, Farsi, in one of the situations that we encountered. Are there any security or privacy concerns? A lot of the questions that we asked are personal in nature. And so we want to ensure the privacy of the participants that we're asking these questions of. And then also looking at the distribution model. So the way you've designed your project, are you looking at a synchronous or an asynchronous model? Will this be an in-person, virtual, or hybrid implementation of your survey? And then how exactly is that getting out to your participants? Are you handing out QR codes? Are you pulling it up on a device for the participants? Using email or text or chat? So after you've assessed the needs of the project, you also need to assess the needs of your team. So who is responsible for distributing the surveys? Are the health educators, in my case, health educators in the field, comfortable with the technology and understand exactly how it's going? Or do they need special assistance or training? And then thinking about sort of the back end is how this data will be analyzed. Will it be a cohort level or an individual level? Are we looking at anonymized responses? Or are we looking at longitudinal follow-up? And so all of those require a different level of analysis. And so understanding who on your team is capable of doing that. And if you don't have someone capable of doing that, how will you get to that point where you can do that analysis? So understanding all of those. So with all of those things in mind, you want to start developing your online survey. And so one of the first things you need to do is choosing a platform. And so one of the most common platforms that we run across is Google Forms, which is free. Microsoft Forms. So if you have the Microsoft suite, if your organization pays for like Word and all of that, you should have access to Microsoft Forms. Qualtrics, which is the platform that we use because it is pretty secure. SurveyMonkey, and then Alchemer, which are other great platforms that I've seen others use. So you want to think about these different platforms. All these platforms offer a basic survey types, multiple choice versus text box and all that stuff. But some of them have more customizable features. So with Qualtrics, I'm able to manipulate things with HTML and JavaScript, but maybe you don't need that level of customization. And so looking at the platform that meets your project needs is what you should be aiming for. And then consider what your budget is as well. Like I said, Microsoft Forms, if you already pay for the suite or your company pays for the suite, you should be able to get that for free. And so you don't need to pay anything additional. After you've chosen a platform, most platforms have a similar library of question types and options. So content validation is mostly standard throughout most of the platforms. And that sort of determines like what can be entered and how exactly it's being entered into the survey, and making sure that what you're looking at is correct. Skip logic, display logic, and branching logic, those are all different ways of manipulating how participants move through the survey, what they're seeing based on different responses or who they are or what information is entered. Embedded data is a great way of collecting sort of back-end information about who's taking the survey, and then just understanding the different question types. So if you ask a question that's multiple choice, you will get a certain range of responses. But if you leave it as a free response, you'll get an even more varied responses in answers. However, you may have to work a little bit harder to do analysis on that. And then also just consider the mechanics of the survey itself. Can participants go forward and backwards throughout the survey? Will they have that option? Are any questions required? Does your project require that they have to fill out certain questions? Can participants refuse? So just think of those things when you're developing the survey, and that will kind of influence how you are structuring it. So based on sort of all those projects and things that we've done, one of the biggest lessons that we've learned is just crash testing it. Have your fellow coworkers, have as many people as possible, look at the survey and try and crash test it in as many ways possible. Come up with new scenarios and just see, are you collecting data in the way that you are expecting? And doing that will ensure that when you're actually out in the field, you'll be collecting the data that you want. Make sure that you have a clear data collection guidance and protocol. And make sure that you have continual trainings and technical assistance. One of the great thing about online surveys is that if there is a bug, you can fix it even while the survey is out in the field, unlike paper surveys where you have to recall all the paper surveys. Next, you want to minimize the burden or effort for the participants taking the survey, and when possible, the people administering the survey. If you make it easy for the participants, for them to understand and move through the survey, you'll collect better data. And if it's easy for the people administering the survey, they'll have more of an opportunity to troubleshoot some of those more complex issues, and also provide support for people taking the survey. So take advantage of those customizable features, that content validation, that skip logic that I mentioned, to make the survey feel as intuitive and easy as possible. And then just as another note, something that we've noticed is just make accessibility features make it easier for everyone to take the survey. So one of the things that we noticed is that some of the questions that we were required to ask were sort of complex in terms of the reading level. And so we had a read aloud feature. And then we also translated into Spanish and had a read aloud feature in Spanish. And so that helped sort of improve our data collection. And so those are just some of the things that you should be considering when designing an online survey. Thank you.